I'm Chiara. I'm Indonesian and Chinese from my mom's side and Surinamese from my dad's side. I guess like if you're mixed race, especially the way that I'm looking, because I'm very like racially ambiguous, I think it's always people trying to like impose an identity upon you. So I feel like that's something that you then deal with on a daily basis. So I would say that's like 90, that defines me for like 90% almost. I think initially I didn't identify as either Asian or black. I identified really as both. Like it wasn't just like, oh, I'm just black or I'm just Asian or I'm just this, whatever. Because my whole family, they blend in very well together. So it's always, even like in small things like cooking or whatever, like my mom, she would obviously bring in like the Indonesian and Chinese side into it, but then she would have small things, even like the way that she would cook her plantain, that would be like the Surinamese side. So even like small things like that, I always felt very in between the two. But I think like around the age of 11, like when I really became conscious of like the way that people would treat me, they would never say ignorant stuff or like racist stuff towards me as like an Asian person. It would always be more aimed at like, okay, but your dad is black or you're this or you're that or blah blah blah, and like I think that was where most of the comments were aimed towards. So I think at some point, because people were constantly telling me this or telling me that, or obviously my skin color as well is not from my mom's side, because my mom, she's Asian, but her skin tone is like much lighter than mine is. So even stuff like in the summer, like not wanting to tan, it was all about the black side, and like all of the comments were about that. So I think at some point I really started to identify more with that side, because that's what all of the comments were about. Now that I live in the UK, you so often like hear people speak about mixed race, and like whereas like in the Netherlands is more similar to the United States or like other places as well, like where if you're even like a little bit black, you're just called black. It's not like oh, that's the mixed race girl. I mean, the mixed race community in the UK is very much like you have a black mom or a white mom and like a black dad. It's like black and white. It's not really my mix. I feel like I'm quite unique. Both of my parents are people of color. Like that's the main difference. Like I never grew up with any type of white family. Like I just don't have white family. So I don't really identify with the mixed race community here at all, to be honest. I'm not sure if the mixed race community fully accepts me, because I feel like I look very different. Like sometimes people can, like most of the time, people couldn't even like tell where I'm from. It's either like people, sometimes I hear like, oh, are you Mexican mixed with Indian? Or are you, some people think I'm like Vietnamese mixed with like Moroccan or like Middle Eastern, that kind of stuff. I've heard Middle Eastern quite a lot. I think that's just from, that just stems from ignorance, because I don't look Middle Eastern at all. Other things I can understand, because I do look very ambiguous, so obviously I understand the confusion. For example, like in my unit, there are a lot of people who are like Indonesian or Chinese or whatever, and they would never even like imagine me thinking like they would never even imagine me being half Asian or mixed with Asian at all. Like they just don't recognize me. Whereas like a lot of black people, they think like, oh, she's probably Asian. They don't recognize like the black side. But like something I really noticed ever since I moved to the UK is the way that people almost fetishize over my mix, like black and Asian. Like when I first moved here, like the way that people approach me on the street and like are like, oh, look at that Blasian girl, like Blackanese even. Like I never heard of that. It's very cringy. But definitely, if you would talk to me 5 years ago or 10 years ago, I was very confused, because my mom, or nobody really likes me to say this, but it was very obvious that they, like my Asian side of the family, they don't like black people. Like even like if we would go there, they would walk around with their like umbrellas right from the sun, like that kind of stuff, or whiten their face with like a powder that looks like flour, what you bake with. So obviously then me coming with my skin tone, my dad coming with his skin tone, and my sister with her curly hair, like if we would then come to Indonesia on like vacation, I felt like sometimes like my family would look at us like what is happening there. I was a bit confused by that because it's your family and officially your blood. So in a way, people can say like, oh, but how can you be racist towards your own blood? But I just feel like that is very much possible. And even if it's not racist towards you, it might be like ingrained in them. Stuff like wanting to be as white as possible. So like the umbrella thing that I mentioned, like staying out of the sun, like using like white makeup, but also bleaching creams, where they would then give my mom or me, like at a very young age, them giving me bleaching creams is then also going to make you feel like, alright, maybe it is a bit, I would be prettier if I would be a bit lighter skinned. So I definitely internalized that because when I would then come back from holiday in Indonesia, first of all, there I wouldn't tan, like I would also stay away from the sun. But then when I would come back, because still you're going to get some sort of tan, like I would use their bleaching creams that they would have given my mum or me. So it was definitely, like I definitely internalized that. Yeah, it was difficult for me to settle like within that community as well, because I felt like they wouldn't really accept my dad fully, or me, or my sister. But now I can kind of step away from it and also understand where their ignorance comes from, because it's just such a different world. Like they genuinely don't know better. I don't want to make any type of excuses for it. Like I have a lot to say about it, like a lot of negative things to say, but I think now being a slightly older, like 10 years later, like I can kind of understand, alright, this is where it comes from and this is what their culture is like. Guys very much are always talking about like the mixed race girls or the light skinned girls. Like obviously like it's not the first time that I've heard that, but I feel like here that's the first time that I've ever like really seen it like this, like how mixed race girls are almost a bit fetishized, but always like put above black women with like darker skin or different hair texture or whatever. I don't know, it just comes with a lot of privilege, so sometimes I feel like it's difficult for me to just speak about like what's difficult about being mixed race or just my experiences without always mentioning that I do understand the privilege that comes with it.